Imagine technology that defies time. A 2,000-year-old computer resting lost at sea. Concrete that grows stronger underwater while ours crumbles away. And stones so massive they baffle even today's engineers. What if the secrets to these ancient marvels were hidden for centuries, waiting to rewrite history? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about human ingenuity, and reveal engineering feats so extraordinary, they still inspire or today. Tech 1: The Antikythera Mechanism. Let's start with something that shouldn't exist. Picture this. You're a sponge diver off the Greek island of Antikythera in 1900. You descend into crystal blue water, expecting another routine dive. Instead, you find a shipwreck filled with statues and treasures. But among the marble and bronze, there's a corroded lump of metal that everyone ignores for decades. Here's the twist. That lump would later be called the most important archaeological discovery of the 20th century. It was a machine. Not just any machine, a sophisticated calculator with over 30 bronze gears, designed to predict eclipses, track the Olympic Games, and map the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. Scientists named it the Antikythera Mechanism, and here's what blows my mind. It was built around 100 BCE. That's 1,500 years before anything remotely similar appeared in Europe. But how did they even conceive of something like this? The precision required would make a Swiss watchmaker sweat. And here's where it gets crazy. To create gears this intricate, the ancient Greeks would need tools we're not sure they had. The teeth on these gears are perfectly shaped triangles, requiring metalworking techniques that historians can't fully explain. X-ray scans revealed something even stranger. The mechanism had instructions written on it in letters so tiny you'd need a magnifying glass to read them. They essentially created an ancient user manual. Think about that. Someone 2,000 years ago was writing microscopic instruction manuals for a bronze computer. But here's the real kicker. When scientists finally decoded what it could do, they discovered it could predict solar eclipses with stunning accuracy, calculate the irregular orbit of the moon using epicyclic gearing, a concept we thought wasn't discovered until the Renaissance, and even account for the leap year. Researchers at University College London built a working replica using only tools available in ancient Greece. It worked perfectly. The Antikythera mechanism wasn't just advanced. It represented a level of mathematical and mechanical sophistication that wouldn't be seen again for over a millennium. When Rome fell, this knowledge vanished like it never existed. But if you think a 2,000-year-old computer is impressive, wait until you see what ancient Romans built that we still can't reproduce today. And it's been hiding in plain sight under the Mediterranean Sea for centuries. Tech 2: Roman concrete. Imagine concrete that heals itself. Sounds like sci-fi, right? Now imagine that same concrete getting stronger as it ages, especially when submerged in salt water. The exact environment that destroys modern concrete. The Romans figured this out 2,000 years ago, and we only recently cracked the code. Here's the problem that modern engineers face. Our concrete starts crumbling after 50 to 100 years, especially in seawater. Salt water infiltrates the tiny cracks, corrodes the reinforcement, and the whole structure falls apart. Roman concrete? Still standing strong after 2 millennia. The Pantheon in Rome, with its massive unreinforced concrete dome, has been standing since 126 AD. No cracks, no repairs needed. Marine structures like the harbors at Caesarea have been underwater for 2,000 years and remain intact. Modern scientists were baffled. What did the Romans know that we didn't? In 2013, researchers finally analyzed Roman concrete at the molecular level, and what they found was genius. The Romans used volcanic ash, specifically from Pozzuoli near Naples, mixed with lime and seawater. But the magic wasn't just in the ingredients. When salt water seeps into Roman concrete, it triggers a chemical reaction that creates new minerals, particularly a rare mineral called aluminum tobamorite. This mineral actually fills the cracks. The concrete literally heals itself. But here's what keeps me up at night. The Romans didn't have electron microscopes or chemistry labs. They couldn't see what was happening at the molecular level. So how did they figure this out? Trial and error over centuries? Maybe, but the precision of their formula suggests something more, a deep understanding of materials that we're only now beginning to appreciate. They documented their techniques in manuscripts, but the why behind their choices remains mysterious. Modern researchers have tried to recreate it, and while we've succeeded in the lab, we don't use Roman concrete in construction. Why? Because it takes much longer to set and cure, weeks instead of days. In our world of fast construction and quarterly profits, waiting doesn't make economic sense. So here's the irony. We have the knowledge to build structures that could last 2,000 years, but we choose to build things that'll crumble in 50. The Romans built for eternity. We build for the next inspection. Their harbor at Caesarea, built by King Herod, used massive concrete blocks, some weighing over 50 tons, poured underwater. These blocks have been submerged for 2 millennia, constantly battered by waves, and they're still solid. Meanwhile, modern concrete harbors need constant maintenance. But Roman concrete isn't even close to the most mind-bending ancient engineering feat, because what I'm about to show you next involves moving stones so massive that even with modern cranes and trucks, we'd struggle to replicate it. And they did it 2,000 years ago, in the mountains of Lebanon. Tech 3: The Stones of Baalbek. Close your eyes and try to visualize 1,650 tons. That's roughly the weight of 3 fully loaded 747 jumbo jets. Now imagine that weight as a single rectangular stone block. And imagine it's been precisely cut, moved, and lifted into place as part of a temple wall. Impossible? The Romans did it at Baalbek. In modern-day Lebanon, there's a Roman temple complex called Baalbek. Most people walk past it without realizing what they're looking at. The temple itself is impressive, massive columns, intricate carvings, the usual Roman grandeur. But the foundation, that's where things get weird. At the base of the Temple of Jupiter, there are 3 limestone blocks called the trilithon. Each one weighs approximately 800 tons. They're perfectly cut, fitted together so precisely that you can't slide a piece of paper between them, and lifted about 20 feet off the ground. But wait, it gets crazier. In the nearby quarry, there's an even larger stone called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing roughly 1,000 tons, that was cut but never moved. And next to it, the largest stone block ever hewn by human hands, 1,650 tons. For context, the largest crane in the world today, the Tyson crane in China, can lift 20,000 tons, but it's a massive industrial structure that takes up an entire facility. The Romans had none of that. Here's the question that haunts engineers. How did they move these stones? Theories range from plausible to absolutely wild. Some researchers suggest they used thousands of workers with wooden rollers and ropes. But the math doesn't add up. You'd need tens of thousands of people in a quarry with limited space, and the wooden rollers would splinter under that weight. Others propose they used a rocking technique, tilting the stone slightly, placing supports underneath, then tilting it the other way. Possible, but we're talking about moving these stones uphill for about half a mile. And here's the detail that makes engineers' heads explode. The stones aren't just placed. They're lifted and positioned with incredible precision, fitting together like puzzle pieces. In 2014, archaeologists discovered something that added another layer to the mystery. Beneath the trilithon, they found even older stones, some dating back 9,000 years, predating the Romans by millennia. This means the Romans didn't start this project. They were continuing or building upon something much older. But who had the technology to work with stones this massive 9,000 years ago? That's the Neolithic period. We're talking about a time before the wheel was invented. Here's what researchers have pieced together about the Roman method. They likely used a combination of techniques we've forgotten. Analysis of the quarry sites shows evidence of iron wedges driven into carefully placed holes along the stone's natural stress lines. They'd soak wooden wedges with water, which would expand and crack the stone along predetermined lines, giving them those precise cuts. For movement, recent experiments suggest they might have used a combination of sledges, lubricated paths, and a massive wooden crane system called a polysbastus that used compound pulley systems to multiply force. But even this is mostly speculation. The truth? We've found some of the how, but the complete picture remains lost to time. What we do know is that Roman engineers accomplished something that would be challenging even today, and they did it with Bronze Age technology and slave labor. But here's something that might blow your mind even more. At least the Romans had metal tools and engineering records. The civilization I'm about to show you next accomplished something equally impossible using only stone tools, and did it on an isolated island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Tech for the Moai of Easter Island. Picture yourself on Easter Island in 1722. You're a Dutch explorer named Jacob Roggeveen, and you've just become the first European to set foot on this remote island, thousands of miles from the nearest civilization. You look around and see something that makes no sense whatsoever. Nearly 1,000 massive stone statues, some weighing up to 82 tons, scattered across the island. Some are standing upright on platforms, others are face down on the ground, and hundreds more are still in the quarry, half carved out of volcanic rock. Here's the thing, the island is treeless. There's no timber for rollers, no wood for scaffolding. So how did they move these giants? The statues are called Moai, and they were carved by the Rapa Nui people between 1400 and 1650 CE. Made from compressed volcanic ash, they represent ancestral chiefs watching over the island. But here's what's wild. The quarry where they were carved, Reino Raraku, is in the center of the island. Yet the statues are found all along the coast, some as far as 14 miles away. And remember, no wheels, no metal tools, no large animals, no trees for rollers. Just stone tools and human power. For centuries, the method was a complete mystery. Theories included everything from ancient aliens to lost technologies. Early European visitors recorded local legends that said the statues walked to their locations. Most people dismissed this as mythology. Obviously, 14-ton statues can't walk. Except, what if they could? In the 1980s, researchers noticed something peculiar about the Moai's design. They're not symmetrical. The base is slightly rounded, and the center of gravity is positioned in a very specific way. It's almost like they were designed to be tilted and moved. In 2012, archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo decided to test a radical theory. They built a 5-ton concrete replica of a Moai with the exact same proportions and center of gravity. Then they tried something that seemed ridiculous. They attached ropes to the statue's head and sides, and using only 18 people, split into 3 teams, they attempted to walk the statue by rocking it forward, side to side. It worked. By pulling the ropes rhythmically, creating a controlled rocking motion, the statue literally walked forward, pivoting on its base. It looked exactly like the ancient legends described. But here's the genius of the design. When a Moai fell during transport, it would fall forward, face down. And that's exactly how archaeologists find the abandoned ones scattered across the island, face down along ancient roads. The Rapa Nui had engineered the statue's shape, weight distribution, and base curvature specifically to enable this walking technique. The rounded base wasn't just aesthetic, it was functional. Recent excavations revealed another stunning detail. The Moai roads had a subtle convex curve, slightly raised in the middle. This design would help the statues naturally stabilize as they walked, preventing them from tipping sideways. But the engineering brilliance doesn't stop there. When the Moai reached their final destination, they had to be raised onto platforms called ahu, some standing 13 feet tall. Researchers believe they used a ramp system combined with levers and ropes, gradually tilting the statue upright while placing stones underneath. It would take weeks and require careful calculation of balance points. Once upright, the Moai weren't done. Artisans would complete the carving of the back, adding details and sometimes petroglyphs. Then they'd add the pukau, a separate cylindrical stone hat weighing up to 12 tons, made from red scoria rock from a different quarry. How did they lift a 12-ton hat onto the head of a 13-foot tall statue? We're still not entirely sure, but the prevailing theory involves a ramp of earth that was gradually built up, allowing them to roll the pukau up and place it on top. Here's what gets me about Easter Island. The Rapa Nui people were completely isolated from the rest of the world. No contact with other civilizations. No exchange of ideas or technologies. Yet they independently developed sophisticated engineering techniques that we couldn't figure out until the 21st century. They understood physics, leverage, center of gravity, and material properties well enough to move hundreds of multi-ton statues across miles of rough terrain using only ropes and human coordination. And they carved nearly 1,000 of these statues with nothing but stone tools. a feat that would take modern sculptors with power tools months per statue. The tragedy is that when Europeans arrived, the knowledge was already fading. Environmental collapse, possibly caused by deforestation related to moving the Moai, had devastated the population. The oral traditions were nearly lost. But if you think moving 82-ton statues with ropes is impressive, wait until you see what I've saved for last. Because this next structure is so perfectly engineered that after 1,500 years, modern seismologists studied it to improve earthquake-resistant designs. And it was built without a single nail. Tech 5 Hryg Temple, Japan, 607 CE. In the city of Noro, Buddhist monks completed construction of a temple called Hryg. Here's the crazy part. It's still standing. Same wooden structure, same foundation, same building, 400+ years later. But it's not just standing. It survived countless earthquakes, including several that leveled modern buildings nearby. And the entire structure was built without using a single nail, screw, or metal fastener. How is that even possible? Japan sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most seismically active zones on Earth. Earthquakes happen regularly, some catastrophic. Modern buildings need extensive earthquake engineering to survive. Steel frames, flexible joints, shock absorbers, billions of dollars in technology. The ancient Japanese had none of that. Just wood, stone foundations, and tile roofs. Yet Hryg's 5-story pagoda has survived everything nature has thrown at it for nearly 1.5 millennia. When the Great Hanshin earthquake of 1995 killed over 6,000 people and destroyed modern steel and concrete buildings in Kobe, Hryg didn't even crack. What did they know? The secret is in a construction technique called kanawatsugi, or interlocking wooden joints. Instead of nails or screws, Japanese carpenters cut the wood into complex 3D puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly. The joints use friction, gravity, and geometric precision to hold firm under normal conditions. But here's the genius. During an earthquake, these joints allow the wood to flex and move slightly without breaking apart. The entire structure becomes elastic. It absorbs and dissipates seismic energy instead of resisting it rigidly. But the true masterpiece is the central pillar, called the Shinbashira. In the middle of the pagoda, running from foundation to roof, there's a massive wooden pillar, but it doesn't touch anything except at the very top and bottom. It hangs suspended through the center of the building with gaps between it and each floor. For centuries, people assumed it was purely symbolic or religious. Then modern seismologists studied it with laser sensors during earthquakes and discovered something incredible. The Shinbashira acts as a massive pendulum damper, the same principle used in modern skyscrapers like Taipei 101, which has a 730-ton tuned mass damper to counteract swaying. When the building starts to sway from an earthquake, the central pillar swings in the opposite direction, counteracting the motion and dampening the oscillations. It's a 1,400-year-old seismic dampening system. But here's what blows engineers' minds. The ancient Japanese couldn't have calculated this mathematically. They didn't have the physics equations or computer models. They developed this through observation, intuition, and generations of refinement. They felt what the building needed. Modern analysis revealed layer upon layer of sophistication. The roof tiles are deliberately loose, allowing them to rattle and dissipate energy rather than transferring it to the structure. The foundation sits on a system of stones that can shift slightly, further absorbing shocks. Even the choice of wood, Japanese cypress, was deliberate. It's both flexible and resistant to decay. In the 1990s, when seismologists from around the world studied Hryg, they used its principles to design modern earthquake-resistant structures. Ancient Japanese carpentry influenced cutting-edge engineering. Here's the kicker. The temple complex includes multiple buildings, all using these techniques. The entire compound has survived floods, fires, typhoons, and earthquakes for over 1,400 years. And it was all built by hand, using techniques passed down through master-apprentice relationships, with no written blueprints, just knowledge, skill, and a profound understanding of materials and forces. So here's what keeps me up at night about all 5 of these builds. If this made you rethink ancient engineering, subscribe, Because history is way more advanced than they taught you in school.